We're live streaming now the destruction of life, and you can only come to the conclusion this is genocide because it is an intention to destroy a people. The conflict in Gaza is the most intense I've ever known. 34,000 people killed, including 15,000 children, and many more bodies to be found under the rubble, and a clear intention by Israel to occupy the whole of the Gaza Strip. Israel is now in breach of the UN Security Council, General Assembly, International Court of Justice, and the Fourth Geneva Convention on the Powers of an Occupying Authority. President Biden, surprisingly, said they were going to withhold further arms shipments to Israel if they continue with the bombardment of Rafah. To his shame, the British Foreign Secretary, Lord Cameron, announced that Britain would continue supplying lethal weapons to Israel to continue the bombardment of Rafah. That is a disgrace. I've been in Rafah on a number of occasions. It's the town where Tom Herndl, brilliant young British photographer, was shot dead by an Israeli soldier as he was trying to save children who were suffering from the demolition of their homes by the Israeli Defense Force. It's not a big town, and it's now got 1 million people in it who are utterly desperate. It doesn't have the facilities to cope with 1 million people in normal circumstances, but these aren't normal circumstances. No water, no medicine, no food, no electricity, no sewage disposal systems. There's as many people now dying from wholly preventable medical conditions like diarrhea and dehydration than there are that have been killed by Israeli bombs. We are witnessing this horror story of a destruction of life of a people who are corralled into a town that cannot cope. Yet, a few kilometers away, there's all the medicines you need, there's all the food you need, there's all the water you need. Why are we allowing this to go on? Let's deal with the issue of the illegal occupation of the West Bank, the illegal bombardment of civilian targets in Gaza, and the horror story of 34,000 people whose lives have been terminated, including 15,000 children who will never know the joy of growing up and making their contribution to our world. The politics of Western Europe and North America and the politics of most of the mainstream media have really enabled Israel to get away with this. Obviously what happened on October the 7th was awful. Holding of hostages is awful. But killing 34,000 people doesn't bring anybody back. And the almost universal attempt by European and North American governments to close down protest, it hasn't worked. The opposite's been the case. We've now had 14 national demonstrations in London, 11 universities have now got encampments at them in the UK, and a very large number in the USA. It has become a global movement for justice for the Palestinian people. When Stephen Capo, who's a Holocaust survivor, spoke in Hyde Park recently, a huge crowd was totally silent as he relayed his story of his childhood under Nazi occupation. He was there as part of a very large number of Jewish people that had joined that demonstration, the Jewish bloc. And the numbers of people from all denominations and none that have attended the marches is absolutely huge. What we have are marches of hope, not of hate. These are marches of people wanting to bring about peace for the people of Palestine. It should also be said, and this isn't reported very much, a considerable number of people in Israel are also opposed to the occupation, also opposed to the bombardment. That's a voice that needs to be heard as well. From horror stories comes hope. The poetry that's been written by those that have subsequently lost their lives. Rafah al-Hari's poem, If I Must Die, is very, very powerful. He says, fly the kite with a long white tail over Gaza to remember me when I'm gone. The people that have awoken to the horror of what's going on in front of them and that indomitable spirit of Palestinian people to survive. That's what gives hope to the world. The media overall, I don't think has covered itself in glory. It has tended to be partisan in its reporting and its analysis of the history of the situation. Independent media is crucial to all of us. DDN is brilliant. So follow DDN on Patreon.